Now we've saved the UV mapping of the head to near the end here because it's a little more complex. There's a few little tricks we need to do here, but it doesn't need to be very complicated. Let's begin first of all by hiding everything except the head. I'm going to tab into edit mode and just hover over the head and press the L key. And then let's hide everything here. Let's press Shift H. Now let's also go over here into the outliner and hide the eyes and the teeth, so those don't get in the way either. What I'd like to do first is begin by adding seams to the inside of the mouth, the tongue, to separate those out first before we do the other parts of the head. And also what I'd like to do is change the viewport a bit here. If I hit the N key and go over to View, you can see that the clip start is at 0.01, and that's pretty good. I'm going to take it down to 0.001, just so we can zoom way in without clipping into the object. Now, if I set this to, let's just set this to 0.1 real quick and zoom in, you can see how it's beginning to clip the object. And that might be good until we get down into here, and trying to add seams with the clipping happening is going to be pretty difficult. So that's why I think when we're zooming in way into an object like this, to get this clip start to be as small as possible, I'm going to once again go to 0.001 so we can zoom in without clipping into the object. So now that we're in here, we can go ahead and add some seams. Also, I need to point out that we need to be in perspective here. If you're in an orthographic view, like the front view, you're never going to be able to zoom into anything because there's no perspective. So you do need to be in a perspective view to be able to get into the middle of an object like this. All right, I think this edge right here, Alt-click this, is going to be a seam. That's going to be a good place to put a seam there. And then also, if I take these edges here, I'm going to press Control and click edges along back here. Let's add an edge along the side of the inner mouth here. Mark that seam, and let's swing around to the other side and do the same thing. So let's begin here, Control click, Control, Control, and mark a seam here. All right. Now let's also think about the tongue here. We need to break this out as well, and I think we could do this edge right here, or we could move it back to here. I think I'll move it back to this edge right back here, right in there. Let's mark that seam. And also, I think we're going to need to open up the tongue right in here. So let's grab this edge and this and mark a seam right here at the bottom of the tongue. And that will help it lay out flat when we unwrap it. Okay, so we've got that. All right, let's hover over this and press the L key. And we've got the seam delimiter turned on, so I think that's going to help us keep it from the rest of the head. So that's good. Let's hit the L key here and hit the L key inside here for the tongue. All right, now that we've got those, let's go ahead and unwrap it. We'll hit U and unwrap. And there we go. So we've got the bottom of the inner mouth, the top part of the inner mouth, and the tongue. We can change from angle-based to conformal just to see if it changes anything. And actually, that's a little better, I think. So, okay, I think we're good there now. That looks pretty good in terms of the squares. They're a little smaller down here than they are up here, but we're not going to be seeing into this area too much at all, so I think that'll be okay. All right. Now let's come out here, deselect everything, and let's hit the L key to select everything else of the head. And we can hide the inside of the mouth here by, once again, pressing Shift H. That will hide all the deselected parts, so we have a little bit cleaner view of the head now here. So, how do we do this? Well, one thing that I like to try, at least right up front, and it usually does a pretty good job, is to create seams in a T pattern over the top and the back of the head. So I would say we should probably select this edge right here, go from ear to ear, Control E, mark that seam. And then right down the center of the back, let's select this edge and Control click this edge to connect all of that up. And let's mark a seam there. And so what we've got is this T pattern going up the back of the head and then going from ear to ear. And that usually does a pretty good job with UV mapping a head. Most of the time, we're going to have something like hair or a helmet or a hat or some sort of object that's going to be covering this seam so it isn't too glaring and too distracting. Now, for the ears, let's also select these edges around the ears and kind of break those out from the main part of the head. I'll press Control E and mark seam here. And in addition, I think I'd like to take these edges right back here and add a seam to these. So we're going to open up this ear at those seams there. Let's go do that on the other side. I'll select this edge and then Alt-Shift click these edges on around. Let's mark a seam and then this edge and here and here. Let's try this, see how that works. And then usually we need some sort of seam to kind of relieve the tension around the neck. And since this is a very small, tight neck area, we're probably going to need something like that. Let's grab a seam or grab an edge right down the center here underneath the chin on the front of the neck. Let's do that. Control E and mark seam. All right, so once again, we've got a T pattern in the back and over the top of the head. We've got the ears broken out, and we've got a little seam right up here in the front underneath the chin. So with these seams marked, let's go ahead and hit the A key to select that whole thing, then press U and unwrap, and let's see what we get. Well, not too bad. Let's change from conformal to angle-based and see if that helps any. I'm not as big of a fan of that, mainly because, take a look at what's going down here. We've got some overlap of UVs happening at the bottom of the neck, and overlapping UVs are just a no-no. We can't do that at all. So I'm going to change back to conformal, and yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, in addition, it looks to me like these are very close. We've got a margin here of only 0.001. And I think we need to spread that out just a little bit more. So I'm going to click here and type in 0.01, and that should spread those out just a little bit. All right, let's hover over this and let's turn it. I'll hit the R key and turn it so it's facing more upright like this. And let's see how that looks. Not too bad, actually. Everything is looking fairly uniform. The UVs around the mouth are a little bit stretched here. You can see around the lips. Let's see if we can do anything with that. What I'll do is I'll select one of the UVs here, and let me turn on the proportional editing tool here. I'll make sure that connected only is turned on. And what let's do is let's just bring this down. Let's hit G. I'm just going to bring this down and expand the area of influence a bit. And you can see as we do this, we can move those around just a little bit. I think I'd like to at least try something like this. And then what I'll also do is take this and move this up just a little bit to kind of close these down a little bit like that. Now what we could also do is let's take a couple of these points here and let's scale them in the X, S and X. You can see if we go in and they stretch out, we can move them in a little bit like this and make them a little bit more squarish, kind of like that. All right, and let's also take 2 points on either side of the nose and let's scale these out in the X. Let's try that. You can bring these in just a little bit. So it helps just a little to get these squares more in line with the size of the rest of the test pattern. Yeah, let's go with that. I think that's pretty good. Let's tab back into edit mode and let's bring everything back. Let's press Alt-H to bring everything else back here. And I think we're now ready to reorganize the whole UV map for the entire character. So if I selected the entire character here with the A key, you can see over here that the UV islands are just a mess. And remember when I said we can't have any overlapping UVs? Well, that's a problem there. So in the next video, we're going to go through the process of reorganizing the UVs and laying them out into a unified UV map.